Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ben Young, your host. So today is going to be a very, very exciting day. This is really cool because I'm having all these reunions with these people that I used to work with. Today, the gentleman that I have today as a guest, man, I've known him since, I guess, 2006, I believe, when I first started, when I went to Rhema. But this gentleman is pastor of Life Family Church in Virginia, Illinois. And we were just talking before we started recording. It's been over 10 years, almost 10 and a half years. I'm like, how did that happen? So anyway, without further ado, let's welcome Pastor Brandon Thompson to the podcast. How's it going?
Hey, good, man. Good to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thanks. Oh, thanks for being a guest, man. It's just been great. I'm so excited. And so I knew you, I guess when I first moved to Tulsa and started going to Rhema, you were already working there, right? Yeah. So you were working, and I'll give you a moment here in a moment to kind of give your little background. But we was briefly on the road with you for a while, and then you got off the road, and then we just kept in touch over the years. So I guess that kind of. The first question I'd like to ask you is kind of tell me a little bit about yourself, what your background is, at Rhema, before Rhema, like what you did, where you came from, that type of thing.
Sure. Yeah, man. Again, thanks for having me. And I'm really excited about our topic today. It's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was born and raised in a little town called Paris, Texas. It's in Northeast Texas, about 25,000 people. I was born and raised there. Brought up in the church. I like to say, I was literally born one Sunday, which I was born on a Sunday, and dedicated the following Sunday.
Oh my goodness.
In church, week old. So I was the typical deacon's kid, I guess maybe a little ornery running around, how they deacon's kids and pastor's kids,
Yeah.
So grew up in a Pentecostal denomination. And the way I kind of, got started, with Rhema and in the ministry was at age, man, I knew probably 15 or 16 years old. I knew I had a calling on my life, just didn't know what. And my mama had always followed Rhema and Kenneth Hagin Ministries teachings and Brother Copeland. And so when I finally surrendered my life to the Lord at age 20, actually, I went and visited Rhema in 97, the summer of 97, and started in the fall of 97. And
wow.
So, yeah, that's kind of my transition from Texas, Pentecostal boy, to Tulsa, word of faith Mecca, So
Yeah.
That's how that started. Came to Bible school, and of course, in between my first and second year in the summertime. That's when the Rhema Singers and Band, Brother Hagin's crusade music team, they had an opening for a drummer, and so I tried out and got that job in between our first and second year, and traveled with Brother Hagin for 5 years before he passed on, and then I continued on subsequently with Pastor Hagin on the crusades. He was going crusades and of course played drums at the church, and as you well know, got into the audio side of it, and so worked 13 years with the ministry before I came out here to Illinois to pastor.
Wow, that is awesome. That is so cool.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of, it's kind of cool. So obviously you felt like you had a call for some time. So did you always feel like you would be a pastor, or is that something that that you're like, okay, like it led up to it, like, and then you didn't realize it until God's like, no, you're going to be a pastor? Did you always kind of feel like you would be doing that?
Yeah. Actually that's a good question, Ben. I just knew my calling was to minister for God, to preach. I always saw myself preaching, and I always, enjoyed being around people and working with people. And so I didn't know if that meant evangelist, pastor, missionary, whatever. But I knew that I was called to either one or, either two of those,
Yeah.
preaching, whatever that looked like.
Yeah.
And knew at the time, I was like, I'm dumb. I don't know nothing. Even though I'm raised in church, I need training. I need teaching,
Yeah.
and so what led me to Rhema. And even in my second year, I chose the evangelist program.
Okay.
And God made a pastor out of me. So, and actually, I would say it really came to the forefront in my mind and heart that when I was traveling with Brother Hagin, the Rhema Singers and Band, that's when the pastoring, the shepherding call, if you want to, or just, revelation in my own life, that's probably the lane I was going to be going down.
Okay.
So really, I started traveling with Brother Hagin and getting sound, awesome teaching from Rhema, and then of course being on the road. That call and in that area just kind of became more of a desire, and I saw myself doing it more.
Yeah.
So that's when that's kind of how I got into it. And somebody, 3 or 4 years into the band, said, "What do you see yourself doing?" Actually, a previous member that had traveled with the band years before me, we were eating one time out together, and he said, "What do you see yourself doing?" I said, actually, I see myself in the future, living Rhema eventually and becoming maybe getting up under a senior pastor, maybe an associate, just learning and pulling off of all their experience, and eventually, I guess, becoming a senior pastor in myself.
Wow.
And so that's kind of how it worked out. So
Wow.
that's kind of how that leading, finding my call played out, so to speak.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. So because you kind of you started going that direction. So let me ask you this. The transition, obviously with you, it's a little bit like that. That's kind of like what you felt. So I guess, well, I'll go here. Did you think a lot about like, okay, you probably thought along the lines of a pastor, like, okay, when I'm a pastor, this is something I'll take note of.
Yeah.
Did you over time, like as you were in helps, as you were supporting a pastor or a minister, did you think in those terms?
Yeah, absolutely. You do, especially as your heart starts to go that direction. It's like, okay, I never, like some guys, I'm sure, and there's probably going to be those listening to this that, immediately they knew, pastoring, just from the get-go.
Yeah.
And I saw myself traveling evangelist, or I saw myself as a missionary.
Yeah.
I just knew I was called to ministry, and I didn't know exactly what that looked like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So as I back to your question, as I did, start going and walking that direction. Yeah. Cause see, we would travel with Brother Hagin to churches.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
This at the time he had transitioned to mainly, we did a few convention centers and public meeting halls, but it was mainly churches and pastors that and so I really got to draw off of what works and what doesn't.
That's great.
It was an awesome crash course because you see it was like the most awesome pastoral school you could go to is going into different situations, different pastors, different personalities, different cities, different regions, different cultures, and just seeing, what did they all have in common? What was the thing that made them, prosper in their ministry, and what from a ministry standpoint, what made them flourish and bear fruit, and so that yes, absolutely. Every time you go into a new location, you just kind of draw on those things and just make note of and really, sometimes I got to talk with the pastors, a little. So that was valuable. So yeah, absolutely. I pulled off of that, other people's experiences, other people have gone before me, like all. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and that's cool. I can totally relate because, being on the road and meeting all different types of pastors, all different kinds of culture. I mean, you travel across the United States, people talk about different countries, the culture is different. You go to another state, the
Oh,
culture's
oh,
different, and
totally.
and that's one of the things I learned, more as you're traveling. You're like, oh my goodness, it's like a different,
Yeah. Country.
whole different like country, or,
Yeah.
I mean, it maybe, but, maybe not a country, but you know what I'm saying? It's very
Yeah. Yeah.
different, and it's cool to meet different types of pastors. And then,
Yes.
just, get
And congregations have their own personality.
yeah, that is really good. That's so
You
true.
know,
Wow.
they have their own culture,
Yeah. Yeah.
and and not any one culture's better than the other. Or, it's just a different personality and culture versus like when we went to Stan Moore's Words of Life in Miami Beach, Florida.
Yeah.
That's naturally going to be a different personality, a different culture than one, say, in the cornfields of Iowa.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a different outreach and ministry style too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're trying to reach a different people with different social norms.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
culture, different way they talk, different. Just everything with the food they eat. It's just kind of. And so, yeah, you get to learn a lot out on the road, as you said.
Wow, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. So when you transitioned, one of the things I wanted to ask you, what was maybe the biggest surprise or maybe the biggest change that you discovered when you transitioned over to being a pastor? Like something that maybe like, oh, whoa, this is like a big change, or this is different than I thought. Is there anything that
Yeah.
comes to mind?
Something does come to mind as soon as you ask me that question. It's like, I would say, because I kind of had the advantage of not necessarily pastoring, but still being in ministry
Uh-huh.
for
Okay.
13 years with the Hagans.
Yeah.
And in ministry, I say I've been pastoring for 10 years, but I've been in ministry for 23 years.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
Pastoring is totally different than kind of in my avenue that we did there with Brother Hagan in the church, but it's still, you're dealing with people.
Yeah.
And so I would say the difference is getting acclimated to being the leader
Ah.
and being the one that people look to,
Uh-huh.
and leading and shepherding and guiding the people.
Wow. Yeah.
A lot more responsibility
Yeah.
versus all my evangelist buddies out there are going to go, what? Being an evangelist, I couldn't even see that now, even though that's what I chose as my second year program.
Yeah.
Because I don't have that grace.
Yeah.
And I don't have that grace to travel all the time. I would hate, hate's a strong word. I would not be comfortable with traveling every weekend or every other weekend.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But the good thing about that is they laughingly say, many of our traveling ministers that come in here says, oh, I'll just, preach and give you the word and just blast you. And then pastor can clean up my mess after I leave,
Yes,
and I just laugh. Yeah. I just laugh afterwards on the front row, but all of our ministers do a good job and everything that we have in, but they say that jokingly, but being a pastor, you are on 24/7.
Yeah.
You're on, and you have to learn how to have a normal life and function normally while still being on.
Yeah.
Away from it. Let me explain that. So when I leave the church on Sunday mornings, or I leave the office, even though I know I'm on 24/7, I'm on call, I could get a text. I could get a matter of fact, as we've been talking, I got a text from a church member.
Yeah.
It just popped on the screen, right?
Uh-huh.
So, that's what I mean by, you don't ever, as a pastor, you never really take a vacation, or you never kind of leave it all at the office, so to speak. You're always thinking about the church, always thinking. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be stressful, taxing, that you get burnt out. You learn you have to learn, or you'll end up burning out and out of the ministry, as some of my, pastor friends have, and different ones we probably all know, that you've got to learn to compartmentalize and give it to God and go pick up your kids from school and be in the moment with your kids, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and in the moment with your wife at home, and then be in the moment mowing your yard, stuff like that. You just learn to give whatever's pressing to God, but you're always still pastor.
Yeah.
That's the describe it, but you can still function and have a good life and have a good home life. You just got to have boundaries and stuff. So the long answer to your short question is the transition to pastoring was, oh, this is all on me now.
Yeah.
Versus even a missionary or an evangelist or an apostle or a
Yeah.
prophet.
Yeah.
That's kind of those ministries, giftings are for certain, set aside times and
Yeah.
schedule. Especially you're traveling, itinerant evangelist ministers, they go in for a week or two, or a
Yeah.
missionary does a outreach mission,
Yeah.
or establishing pastors, apostle, setting up works and stuff. Whereas, the pastor, and I'm not comparing the gifts at all, and I'm not saying one is less than the other or better than the other. They're not. They're all
Yeah.
five equal.
Yeah.
Christ gave the church to do a specific function. Just to answer your question, what was that transition like? It was like, okay, not only do you have to preach Sunday, but you can't leave now and go back home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you're not a missionary here in this particular local city, installing a pastor or starting a church and then moving on, or preaching an outreach tent meeting. This is home, and you got to show back up at the office, and you got to do counseling, and they're going to ask you for answers. You've got to do preaching. You've got to do So I guess the weight of the responsibility
Yeah.
was on me once I started pastoring.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the way I can describe it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. And it's so
Yeah.
funny as you talked, you're like answering all some of these other questions that I was going to ask
Okay.
you. It's
Okay,
great.
good. Hey,
So,
there's a 3-for-1 answer there. Then.
yeah,
So,
there you go. So
Yeah.
so I guess that kind of takes me back to like you mentioned about like always being on, but also being in the moment and being able to like, enjoy your family. And that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask. And I was going to see if you could elaborate on that a little more. Like, how do
Yeah.
you balance, your pastoring, your family time? Like, I guess maybe what are some things for somebody out there?
Yeah.
Like, how maybe do you do that? Like, what are some things you do?
Yeah. Some people might disagree with me on this, and you can check me, doctrinally and in the Word. But my first responsibility is to my family,
Mm-hmm.
and then my call.
I would agree. I agree.
Actually, let me say it like this: my first responsibility is to God,
Yeah.
my family, and then the call.
Wow. See, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
Because if I gain the whole world, which I know in context what the word is talking about there, but if I gain a whole huge ministry and following, but I lose my family, what have I gotten?
Wow. Yeah.
And so you have to make family a priority. Even if you can't do that within your heart and mind, you can't let ministry go. You're going to have to fake it and make,
Wow.
you know what I'm saying? Maybe
Yeah.
internally, while you're at your son's baseball game, you're thinking about ministry.
Yeah.
Got to do that.
Wow. Yeah.
You don't want to lose your family, and you can't sacrifice your family for the work of the ministry.
Wow. Wow.
I know people say, and I've seen ministries and growing up, and ministers and evangelists and missionaries and everybody, where they put ministry ahead of the family.
Yeah.
And the family doesn't want anything to do with the ministry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was out of balance. And God never called those people to be out of balance.
Wow. Wow.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's not God to neglect the family and for the work of the ministry. Ministry will always be there. People will always be there. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying, this is all within balance. I'm not saying, hey, you got an emergency hospital call. Somebody's been in a car wreck and they need you at the hospital. Well, I've got my daughter's, she needs help on her homework, so I can't make that.
Yeah.
That's all within reason.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We all have those, but I'm talking about 24/7. Where you're getting, literally burnout on ministry, and none of that burnout is coming from your family because you don't even spend that much time with family and those relationships.
Yeah.
I would rather have a strong relationship with my kids and my wife versus having some big successful ministry in the eyes of men.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I think there was another part of your question was how do you, compartmentalize and do that? And there's no easy answer, and it takes work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To be able to do that. And what I mean by that is I could be on vacation and thinking about the church.
Yeah.
All the time. I mean, you could be things you literally as a discipline, it's like brushing your teeth almost.
Yeah.
You just do it every morning. It's coming every night.
Yeah.
Before bed, I'm going to brush my teeth. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
And those thoughts and plans and maybe, concerns I have start to, occupy my mind and emotions. I literally say, no, I'm not going to think about it. I have to turn it off. I can't do anything about it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Worry, concern never took care of a church problem.
That's good.
Worry never paid an electric bill for me. I don't know if it did for you. If I worry enough about it, my house payment is going to get paid or my car is going to. All it takes is a lot of good worry. Focused worry, right?
That's so good.
It's like that same thing. Paul didn't say, I have stress, I have anxiety, I have depression, I'm burnout with the church. He said, no, I have concern for the church.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Concern is different than fear, worry, and stress.
Oh wow, yeah.
He said, I have concern for the church, which means to me, I'm not looking it up or haven't looked it up, but concern means I am attentive to, my energies and my heart and my focus is to take care of the church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm.
Not be stressed out, lose sleep over it because so-and-so is leaving or leaving the church. They didn't like how you preached or you got a situation. I've in the last 10 years, I've pretty much experienced every experience that I've ever heard about another pastor having.
Wow.
And maybe it's good. Maybe it's a good things that you're thinking about too, or ruminating in your mind over and over again as you're on a roller coaster with your kids at vacation, or at home, doing homework, like a plan about the church, things that God's put in your heart and stuff like that. Even good things, can take that place. So you literally have to say, okay, I'm mowing the yard now. I'm not going to sit here for an hour or two and just think about the church.
Wow.
I'm going to listen to worship music. I'm going to listen to the word. I'm going to listen to whatever, or I'm just going to mow grass. I'm not going to sit here and do it. And it's literally a mental and emotional discipline you have to just develop over time.
That is so good. Wow.
Yeah.
That's such wisdom.
Yeah. Instead of Nike, just do it. It's like, just don't do it. It's almost like sin, like sin.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes it's not like, oh, I feel just glorious today and I just want to obey God in every little detail of my life. And I want to be the most righteous and perfect example of a godly Christian and pastor before God. No, but I don't always feel that, but I do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You discipline your flesh, and that's kind of how you got to do with worry, concern, because the devil will oblige you. He'll jump right on your shoulders. No, you need to bathe in it.
Yeah.
You'll get it figured out. You'll get it processed. You need to know, basically it's faith too, because you're trusting the Lord with all your heart and
Yeah.
not leaning to your own understanding in those situations.
Man.
So yeah, a little bit of faith and discipline
Wow.
combo there.
That's so good, man. That is wow. I'm loving this. I love the like. I'm getting so much out of this.
Yeah,
uh,
amen. And I have too.
yeah,
I'm getting out of it when I hear myself.
yeah, I know, right, man.
And not me. You know, it's God and His experiences, my experiences with church, and just what He's by His grace and mercy has. Sometimes by my own fault, He still has mercy on us and
oh my
lets
goodness.
us keep going.
Yes, that is so
So
true. That is
you
so
know,
true.
you don't have
So
to do everything.
yeah, exactly. Well, and I love how you say that. Like you said, it's like you just do it. You have to make yourself do it, and it's oh man, there's so much
Yeah,
rolling around my head. Like
I know. 3 hour
so
podcast.
yeah, exactly. So but I guess one of the things, and you kind of already touched on this, and this might sound similar, but you did mention burnout, and I think
Yeah.
you touched on a lot of things, but is that kind of the same concept, or I guess, do you have any more things to say about like how do you what would you say to somebody? A pastor or anybody, how do you keep from getting burned out? And it might have been what you've
No,
talked about, or if you have any more
yeah,
to say about that.
no, that's just part of it. Yeah, I got a few more things to add about that. Sometimes, as Jesus did,
Yeah.
you just need to get away.
Yeah.
I believe I forget where the passage is. Jesus went alone with the disciples. Let's go, to the desert or quiet place.
Yeah.
He got away from the crowd
Yeah. Wow.
and spent seasons by himself. If the Master, if Jesus Christ, God in flesh, needed to do that, then how much more,
Do we,
do we
you
as
and
humans?
me?
Yeah,
Wow.
and so you have to take those times away to get away. And even if it means not necessarily taking a vacation, obviously you need to take a vacation
Yeah. Yeah.
every year with you got to take a vacation.
Yeah.
But also you can get away, on the weekends, or like, you know what? I've just been going nonstop. I'm going to be out of the office this week.
Oh
You
wow.
know, I'm not
Yeah.
going. I'll still take calls. I'm still pastor. I'll
Yeah.
still text and message and talk to people, but I'm not going into the office because I need this time away.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
I'm going to spend time, at the house. I'm going to go, walking more, whatever. I'm going to go, do some of my. I'll say this as pastors: you need hobbies.
Yeah.
You need a hobby as a pastor,
That's cool.
because you'll never hobbies almost make you like, if you get into something like, many pastors are into golfing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I like golfing. I like the outdoors too. I like fishing and hunting and just being outdoors. And so as you learn to, grow on those hobbies, and you maybe get good at them or you enjoy them, then you find yourself wanting to do them more. And so that helps you, especially if
Mm.
you can develop a hobby with your spouse or friends,
Oh yeah.
where they pull on you like, hey, this weekend, let's go shoot 18 holes,
Uh-huh.
or let's go out to the lake,
Yeah.
uh, stuff like that. You need hobbies. You need relationships outside of ministry,
That's
and
good.
sometimes you have to take time, even if it's not a hobby. Just say, hey, you know what, honey, let's go. Tomorrow Thursday. I was supposed to work in the office, but me and you go. Let's just go to, let's just go to town. Let's go eat a good lunch. Let's do some shopping. Do something. I'm not going in the office.
Cool.
If it's just a one off, and then last but not least, sometimes you need a sabbatical.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
I I have friends that have taken them. Fortunately, I have not had to take one. Uh, but I recommend them, and not to saying I wouldn't take one. But when I mean a sabbatical, my home church, our pastor back home in Texas, my dad's on the board. He just said that last year, I think their pastor did a 6 or 8 week sabbatical.
Oh wow. Wow.
It would, especially if you're burned out, it helps you just get away from it all, sort everything out, recharge your batteries. Uh, kind of decipher and discern what's what. Why am I feeling this? Why am I going through this?
Yeah.
Do I need to make a move? Is it time for me is this season here over? Or is it just in me?
Yeah.
Is it that I've done to myself? Or, so a sabbatical where you take that, a month, 6 weeks, 2 months away. And most churches and boards understand that, and they want a healthy pastor. And so, have somebody that you trust fill in for you, maybe some people at the local church fill in for you, and take that sabbatical. It's worth your mental health, it's worth your family, and it's worth it for the church. It's, you're almost doing justice by the church and doing the church right by going, you know what? I've reached my limit. I need a break from people.
Yeah. Yeah.
or just stress or just issues,
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's really good. And I love all this advice because one of the things that you said a while ago that really stuck out with me, and you were at the time you were talking about family, but you're like, I'd rather have a good relationship with my wife, my family, and like than to have this big, huge church. Well, and the thing is, what you just now said is even more. And I think it's really important. It requires you really honestly to always keep that balance in check of this is God's thing. This is not like my ministry, my church. Exactly. And I don't, you probably know more about it than I do, but in my experience of being around some pastors and ministers, unfortunately, I think they get, for some people, it's easy to get wrapped up in like, no, I got to keep going. I got to keep going. This is thing. I got to stay strong. And I'm doing this. And the stuff that you're saying, oh my goodness, it's gold, because it's, if you just think of it that way and put it in perspective, like, hey, this is God's thing. Like he called me to do this. He just wants it for the people. It's not like this is something I'm building up, And exactly. I think that's really cool how everything you're talking about, like for somebody to take a sabbatical, that would be like really a thing to say, hey, God, this is God's thing. So if I leave for a while, I'm not worried about, well, what if I leave and I'm not as popular and people don't like me as much or whatever. Right. Well, like that's not even, that shouldn't even be, like what's important. I mean, it really is. I mean, you want to still minister to people, but it's just such wisdom to be like, hey, you know what, Lord, you'll take care of me. This is what's important. I'm going to do this because I feel like it's the right thing to do. And I just think that's gold. That's awesome. That's just so good.
Let me just add one more thing. Yeah. I actually maybe lean, I wouldn't say to a fault, but I'm on the edge of the other ditch. I'm not in the ditch. In saying that a lot of times I'll say it from the pulpit. I'll say, listen, y'all, this is not my church.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll tell the people that. I'll say, this is not my church. This is God's church.
Yeah.
I am a steward of the work, calling of the body of Christ here. I am stewarding the people of God and his work and his vision for this area.
Yeah.
And I say, I'm the steward over it, so I'm responsible for it, but it's not my baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It actually takes a lot of the pressure off.
Yeah.
Now I do, whether it fails or goes, a lot of it, that depends on me as the leader. I can't slough off. I can't just go, well, it's Christ. If it goes, it goes. If not, then I'm not responsible. Well, no, there's a middle of the road there. You are, you got to do obedience. Sometimes you do endure. A lot of times you got to endure. You got to do what you don't want to do sometimes. Yeah. So there's responsibilities, but the ultimate success, as long as I'm putting my heart into it and doing everything I know that God is wanting me to do here, the results I have to leave with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's too much of a weight. And what that does is it takes not only the heaviness and the responsibility of it, but it also takes the glory of it off of me.
Yeah.
Oh, that when it does go good and it starts getting fruitful, it's real easy to, for the flesh to go, you know what, man, I've done a good job.
Oh, yeah, I did great.
Yeah, I did great, man. I can preach. Look how many people are showing up now at our church services. I'm a pretty awesome dude.
I get more followers. I'm getting more followers on social media.
Right, exactly. Before you go, your pride. That's my gifting, And yeah, I know Paul. I know everybody out there that the theologians out there are saying. But Paul talked about that the ministry that Christ gave him. It's my ministry. Yeah, it's your responsibility to fulfill that ministry, to do what he tells you to do.
Yeah.
But too many times we look at the result, and we're not responsible for what man considers successful.
That's so good.
We're responsible for what God sees as successful.
Wow.
And success is different in different situations.
Wow.
If I'm pastoring like I do now, we pastor at the nearest town is 1,500 people.
Okay.
The next town is 6,000 people.
Okay.
And, active membership, people that come, we're running about, listen to me. It's not my ministry. I'm saying I'm running.
Understand. Yeah.
Our church runs about 130.
Okay. All right.
And so, it's a smaller rural church. I'm between two smaller towns. I'm out here on the highway in the country, in the cornfields, literally.
Yeah.
So that's all relative. So you got to look at your situation. If a pastor, is pastoring in a town of 250 and he's got 50 church members, to me, that's good. That's faithful.
Yeah.
That's a good, thing.
Yeah.
But what if we're only running 20 when I feel like we should be, running 50 or 60? Well, have you fulfilled the vision that God called you to? You can't compare yourself against a pastor from a big city and go, well, you're running 300 or 400, and well, just by statistically, by numbers, you should have more if you're in a town of 50,000 plus versus 3,000, right?
Yeah.
And so you can't look in the natural what man says that's successful, that's not successful. So how many people, I know of one pastor that's got a mega church and he's got 6 campuses now, but he started out ministering to 2 elderly ladies in a Bible study.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
That's for faithfulness.
Wow.
You just be faithful and obedient and leave the results up to him.
Wow. That is such great advice. Oh, I love it. Oh my goodness. So, wow. So going back a little bit, one of the things you, like I said, you're answering a lot of my questions before I ask them.
Sorry.
No, it's great. I love it. So you talked about having friends, doing stuff outside of church. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? How important it is to have friends? Or, I've always heard, being a pastor, and maybe you can elaborate on this, say, as far as who your friends are, it's kind of one of those things where you're a leader and sometimes you can feel alone. And so could you elaborate on how not to feel alone and how to navigate that and how important it is to have those friends, which
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. No, that's a great question as well. They're all good questions, Ben.
Thanks.
You're a great podcast. You're doing awesome. No, yes. Let me say one thing that the devil loves to do, especially leaders and pastors.
Okay.
And it's called isolation.
Yeah.
He wants to isolate you because it's a lot easier to take you out if you're not in a group or you don't have others maybe that you're accountable to or that are looking out for your best interests. If you're by yourself, you're a lot easier target for the enemy.
That's really
and so why it's key to have, friends that check in on you, that call you, that, I have 2 friends from Rhema, that I'm thinking about now. And we just texted each other back and forth last night.
Yeah.
Sometimes we text jokes back and forth, sometimes it's a phone call, how's everything going? And they live way away, right?
Yeah.
But also getting friends that are in the ministry is important too, that you can vent to.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Your wife can only, or your other spouse can only, stand so much venting. Right?
Yeah.
in the church together, they already know, and they're like, "Hey, I need to vent too,"
Yeah.
you know, or just get it off my chest. It's not necessarily you're griping or belly aching. It's just like, man, that really, I can't believe that happened, or they said that. That really kind of hurt, or whatever. You need friends and co-ministers where you can say, "Hey, you know what?" And I know you had a question about mentors. Gosh. Mentors, you've got to have some mentors, people that you honor and respect. I think of one in my life currently right now. Obviously, he's many people's mentors, not just mine, but Pastor Hagen.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not a time that I can't pick up the phone and call him. He won't answer the call.
Wow. That is amazing.
He texts me consistently just to check on me, encouraging word. And I know he does this to many younger ministers. Just to, it's so comforting just to know that, man, I don't know how to navigate this. I need to call Pastor Hagen.
Yeah.
Or some of the guys in RMAI, Tony McKinnon, Doug Jones.
Yeah.
Those guys to be able to say, you know what, can I vent to you? Can I discuss this situation? Just you're not even at the point where you're making a dumb decision about it yet.
Yeah.
You haven't made that mistake and let it eat on you where you're going to, say the wrong things or make the wrong movement. You're just needing to get it off your chest. And once you do, then you can go to sleep.
Wow.
Yeah. So mentors, friends that you can talk to, because there is a degree, I've always heard it, and it is true, that you can only be so friendly with your church members to a point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they hold you, and it's just human nature, they hold you in high regard. They hold you as their leader. They hold you up sometimes, and I try to remind our people, hey, I'm human just like you are. I'll make mistakes. I am gifted to teach and to pastor. I am not gifted to live it out. I have to live it out just like you do.
Yeah, yeah.
Doug Jones, that's Doug Jones saying, I heard him say it one time. He said, as ministers of the gospel, we must not only teach the gospel, we must live it as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you can only be, I can't go to a church member and says, so-and-so said this to me and it kind of stung. And, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But there's other church members involved, and it could get back to the church member. It could be their cousin. You don't even know it.
Yeah.
You can open a hand. So there's it's a certain depth or level of friendship and fellowship that you have with your church members.
Yeah.
Some of them I'm closer to, not by choice. It's almost like a gift from God where you can talk a little bit more, share a little bit more, not everything that you could with, maybe fellow pastors that live out of town or something like that.
Yeah.
But you'll find that as a pastor, you'll have closer relationships. It's not favorites or anything. It's just, that's how it is. People, you take to one another a little bit more. Maybe you have, more lunches than you do with them. Yeah. So yes, you have relationships inside the church. You just have to keep some boundaries, healthy boundaries there too, as well.
Yeah.
'Cause you can not only be hurt possibly by them, but you can hurt them as well.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Because you're perfect as a pastor.
Wow.
And a lot of times, I'm not saying not to let them see your imperfectness or your flaws. I'm just saying sometimes you don't have the best day. Yeah. And unlike your best friends or co-pastors, you say the wrong things, then what that does is that lets them down. That sometimes people hold you up on too high a pedestal, and it can be detrimental to their own faith, especially if they're young in the faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They don't understand context. They don't understand everything you're saying. You might be talking about church business and you got a little too comfortable, and they're like, oh, I didn't know that, Pastor. And so, so back to your question, I didn't mean to get off on relationships and friends with the church itself.
No, that's great.
You've got to have those friends where you can let off some steam, and they can sympathize and offer wisdom. So.
Yeah, that is so good, man. We could probably go on for like 2 hours,
Yeah,
but I think
maybe
I'm
a
to the
part
point.
two.
Yeah. I was gonna
Yeah,
say I've
yeah,
already said that about some people. I was like, man, I think there's a part two, definitely do.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
what I will say is there's one more question I'll ask, and then
Okay,
I'll have to invite you back for part two.
sure,
So
sure.
what would you tell your younger self? Like
Oh
going into
man,
ministry or being a pastor?
that, wow, that's a good question. I know I said they're all good questions, but you say for last, Ben. Wow, what would I tell my younger self going into ministry? Uh, there will be obstacles. It won't be rosy. It won't always be perfect. Uh, it won't be like you think it's going to be,
Yeah.
but you can make it, and it will be worth it.
Uh, that's
It'll be worth it, and it'll be rewarding.
that's great.
And don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give.
That's
There's it might be a bad day today, or a bad week, or a bad month, but next month will turn around. It'll get better.
oh my goodness. That is so
It,
good.
so just keep going. Just be faithful. All I want to hear him say at the end is say, well done, my good and faithful servant.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do, is just stay the course, be faithful no matter what comes. It might, and I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer when I say it might not look like, what you thought. I didn't mean that to say it's going to be worse than you think. It
Yeah.
might just success and the ideas of what it's going to look like, and the good ideas that you have might not look like what you think they are, but it's still going, at the end of the day, is you're faithful to God and faithful to the call. You don't give up. You endure hardness as a good soldier. At the end of the day, you lay your head on your pillow at night, and you've given it your all for the kingdom. You can rest well, rest in peace, and be so fulfilled, even when maybe it wasn't a good day. Maybe you didn't preach the best, but you know what? You're fulfilling your call. And yeah, stuff ain't perfect, but I'm fulfilled.
Wow.
What else am I going to do? Am I going to go sell cars? And nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong. I've
Yeah.
sold mattresses before. Okay.
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
can get worse than mattresses back. So I'm not knocking bivocational ministers. I've
Yeah.
got friends that are bivocational, and they might be sales. I'm just saying, what are you going to, it's like,
Yeah.
I'll leave you with this statement. It's like when Jesus said to the people, it said many disciples, not just the 12, but Christ had many disciples that followed him on the fringes.
Yeah.
Disciples of disciples,
Uh-huh.
Peter and he said in a passage there, he said, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no part with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it said that the people heard this and said, man, these things are hard to accept.
Yeah.
And it said that some of them walked no more with Jesus.
Wow.
They left him. They couldn't handle that saying. Either they didn't mean it, or didn't know what the meaning was, or maybe they didn't like having to give up their lives and
Yeah.
Christ. But what he was talking about, eat my flesh, drink my blood. You're going to have to do. I'm going to have to become part of your life, and you're going to have to become part of mine.
Wow.
Right. And it said they walked with them no more. And you know what Peter did? Peter turned to Jesus turned to Peter and said, "Are you going to leave me also?" And Peter said, "What am I going to do, Lord? You have the words to eternal life."
Wow.
And in my worst days, I go, "What am I going to do? Am I going to quit? Really? Am I going to stand before Christ and say, well, I know you didn't quit, but I quit the ministry, or no matter how bad it gets, and not to say you don't need a long break, or maybe take a season out, or whatever you got to do to come back afresh, but you just can't quit. That's one thing you can't quit."
Oh man,
So,
that
amen.
is golden, man. I tell you one thing, I'm gonna listen to this probably half a dozen times. This has been so wonderful.
I
My
hope it's been
goodness.
helpful. I wanted to give. I prayed to the Lord, just give us both wisdom, and that can be beneficial to the hearers. So
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
glad anybody gets to
Yes.
see it. So amen.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you again. Oh my goodness, thank you so much. Like I said, I think there's a part two in the works, but hey, we'll
Sure.
there's tons more you can share. So once again,
Amen.
thanks. Once again, this was Pastor Brandon Thompson with Life Family Church in Virginia, Illinois. So thanks again. And until next time, be blessed and we'll talk soon.